You are backstage. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our lovely workshop here about starting with awesome quieting self-doubt in your online marketing. So this workshop is by me and the fabulous Katie here. And we have a lot of information to cover, so we'll get into it. Katie, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Nicole. Thanks so much for setting this up.
No problem. So basically what we want to do is help people seem like their confident selves in their online marketing without maybe coming across as over the top. So we have right now, we're broadcasting to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So if you leave a comment on one of those platforms, it's going to show up for us. So I'm going to keep an eye on those. And what we're going to do is if you have questions or something like that, we're going to save them for the end to just make sure we get through all the material. And we have some questions that were submitted to us ahead of time that we're going to sort of prioritize. But please do leave comments or questions as we go along. I'm going to keep an eye on them and bring them up as relevant. And what maybe we'll do really briefly is introduce ourselves. So I'll go first. Might as well. So I am Nicole Willett, and I own a marketing firm called Breaking Even Communications. And I also have two co-working spaces, one in upstate New York and one in coastal Maine. And we also have a virtual membership too. So if people like hanging out, you can join that. And I have been doing marketing copy and stuff for about 12 years now. And I know I have some ways that I can improve. So I'm really excited to have Katie here today. So that's all about me.
Thank you, Nicole. I am Katie Rice-Gooder. I have a background in marketing and communications and earned an MFA in creative writing. So what I do now is work primarily with women entrepreneurs with a focus on how their content can be the most effective while also being genuine and relatable, and really kind of leaning into that space between what makes excellent writing and how to be the person who lets that writing come forth, even if it's about pressing enter and like, feeling nervous about the way that you're sharing it, but really like letting your true self, your most awesome self come forward.
Right. And this whole thing, by the way, started with an Instagram post, as most things do. And what I'm going to do is add that to our broadcast here. So just wanted to let you guys know where this topic came about. So a few years ago, I posted this to Instagram, and this is a picture, basically just a very short thing. We had a free workshop, and I asked everyone to pre-register ahead of time because obviously we had limited space. This was before end times, so people got together in real life back then. And what happened is about 30 extra people showed up. And so we ran out of chairs, we ran out of space. And so I posted this, what I thought was this fun, self-deprecating thing about, basically, are we going to run out of food? Like, we have no chairs, people are sitting on the floor. And at the employee retreat, a little bit after this, one of my employees was like, I really just hate it when you say stuff like this because it makes it sound like you don't know what you're talking about. And it's not true. So I thought that
Can you read the post to people for
sure?
So it says, it's small to read?
Sure. Yeah, it is kind of small, isn't it? So it says, this is sadly the most interesting picture I took at the Get Found workshop. 35 people, 20-ish Google business listings claimed, and more leftover cheese than one person should have. Facebook and fondue in the future, #workshop. So that is that post. So, and yeah. Anyway, so that's where this whole thing started, was that. And ever since then, I've been self-policing myself about kind of how I show up in my own copy and in my own marketing. So
yeah, so you had this employee who was able both to notice something that you yourself weren't noticing. And I think this is it's really generous to give honest feedback and to say, like, Nicole, you run 3 businesses. Like, you had a workshop that was packed with people who didn't even register and who were like, I just really want to learn from Nicole. And so to tell that story as like, oh, I'm such an a-hole, I can't believe I didn't have enough chairs. Like, that's not the story. the
No, I
stories like
know.
you share, you know. So that's yeah, that it's about what's the language you choose to describe that event, and also like the internal mindset of like, you know, in the end, it's pretty cool that like 30 extra people showed up to hear my material and to, you know, to connect with each other.
Right. And so, in talking with you, the only thing I ever thought about was, the flavor of self-doubt that I salt my marketing with, which is self-deprecation. But so we're gonna go over. I see you have some other ones besides that, which is really good. So, but we'll start with self-deprecation, right?
Yeah, yeah. I just want to start by saying that the reason that I know many different flavors of self-doubt is because I experience many different flavors of self-doubt. And I think the number of people who registered for this workshop and who have emailed us to say like, oh my gosh, that's so relatable, help us each to understand that this self-doubt is not something that just exists in your own head. Like, it's part of the experience of being human. So self-deprecation is a big one. That, yeah, I think part of the reason that self-deprecation is an appealing strategy is that it seems like warm and fun, and like you're connecting with the other person on a more informal level. Like you want to build that connection with your customers. You don't want there to be a sense of distance. And so what are other strategies that you can use to create that warmth without being like, oh my God, can you believe me? Oh, so self-deprecation, it can also be a strategy to undercut objections that you think someone else might raise. So a life coach that I worked with this summer, I worked on his website content editing, and he has a whole piece which is really beautiful about like my coaching journey. So he talks about how he transformed into the kind of person who wanted to serve other people as a life coach. And part of that story involved literally him on a global journey, making a stop at I think in Bali, the island where Elizabeth Gilbert goes in Eat, Pray, Love. And so he had a couple lines about like, oh, I know it's so cliche, me and Liz Gilbert literally hanging out in Bali. Oh, and I said, like, do you think that the people who are coming to you as a life coach are going to be bothered by the fact that you and Liz Gilbert went to the same island? Like, you can just cut that. Like, so people want to be relatable, want to stay on the same plane as their client, but we want to think about how else can you accomplish that warmth.
Right. And what I found with my stuff is I find myself policing it a little bit, because what I'll just delete something. So for example, I was writing something and and it was actually something for this workshop. And before I sent it to you, Katie, and I wrote our little project, and I said, no, I don't need little. And I just deleted it. So sometimes it's just a matter of kind of deleting that thing and maybe adding that detail in a more interesting way than, yeah. So deleting. Something I'm learning to do.
Yeah. And I think it's important to notice that it's not that you get rid of self-doubt entirely, but you learn to recognize it, and you learn to, kind of put it in its corner where it belongs.
Right. And we talked about self-doubt is self-deprecation is pretty easy to recognize, but you came up with some other stuff too, which I thought was good. Yeah.
A big one is minimizing. And this one is subtle. One of the things I loved about working on your copy over the summer, we worked together on Nicole's website. And Nicole is an amazing writer and a super talented business person. And so I found it so interesting to work on your web copy because, sometimes people have a lot of different problems going on. And yours, the copy was so strong, but there were a couple of ways that you were minimizing the work that you do. And so we'll look at some of these examples later on, but minimizing, making, not taking up so much space, like, oh, just my little project.
Yeah.
That's a strategy that, it's funny to call it a strategy, but it is kind of a strategy of like not wanting to seem too big for my britches. So minimizing is something we'll talk about more. Mm-hmm. The extreme version of that is what I would call invisibilizing.
Okay.
My mom is an entrepreneur. She's developing a clothing line. She is a personal shopper, and she does people's colors. She's done it for almost my entire life. And she's amazing at it. Like she has written a book that is now a textbook at the Fashion Institute of Technology. Like, she's awesome. And so even some of her close friends, like, she presents at conferences. There are ways in which she is really visible. But one of her close friends reached out to her recently, like, oh, I was just speaking with this woman in California, and she does people's colors. Isn't that incredible? And my mom was like, how have I done such a poor job of letting people know about my work that literally good friends of mine don't understand what I do?
Yeah.
So
that happens to me all the time too.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, all the time.
And
yeah, people will be like, oh, I didn't know you did like Facebook marketing. And I'm like, how do you not know? I feel like I talk about it all the time, but I clearly don't. They don't know.
Yeah. With my mom, it's a case that any time she's talking about her business, she feels salesy, and it feels like a turnoff to her. Other invisibilizing strategies are like not creating a website at all, not creating a social media presence, creating something and then ghosting from it. So that's another way self-doubt shows up, is just really undercutting any kind of communication at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The next two kinds of self-doubt that we'll talk about are somewhat counterintuitive.
Okay.
Professional armor is when you feel like, I don't know if I'm a legit business owner, so I'm going to sound super professional, and I'm going to use all the jargon from my field, and I'm going to like blazer up everywhere I go, in a way. So like, props to the blazers of the world. That's great. But sometimes we can be hiding under that super professional language. In my own website, in its first iteration, I was talking a lot about like, I work with women leaders on content strategy, which is true. Like, I work with amazing women and I help them develop their language. But it just didn't sound like me. I thought as I was starting this business that I had to sound super formal. And as I got more comfortable with who I am as a person and as a professional, which is more fun, more relatable, more emotional, that I ended up finessing that copy to talk about like editing is my love language. And if you're turned off by the idea of love languages, or you're like, oh, then you're not my client. So that's fine. But like, editing really is a way that I put love into the world and help people build themselves up. Another example of the way that professional armor can operate in people's writing is just leaving out the personal completely. So there's a counselor whose website I was working on with her this summer, and she became a therapist because when she was young, she had hearing issues that affected the way that she developed language, and she was supported by a team of like a therapist, speech therapist, like a multi-professional team of people who really believed in her. And now when she is a counselor who works mostly with youth, and families. And it didn't occur to her to put that story in, to tell the story of how the work she does is deeply connected to who she is. She was like, I don't know if I want people to know that about me. And that's like, people should trust their own boundaries, but there are ways that vulnerability, that bringing you as a person into your work can really strengthen it and really help people understand why they want to work with you specifically.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense to me. I had a friend who pointed out in my LinkedIn bio, she was, because basically a ton of people do what I do, right? And part of what helps you stand apart is these little details. And so she kept asking me questions and finally got to like, why do you do this? And I said, I think every woman should have a source of her own income. Like, I think not necessarily a full-time job, not or a full-time like self-employed person, not necessarily working outside the home in like a job or something, but I just want women to feel like they have some control over their own income, because that's really powerful and it keeps you from being stuck in situations, you know. And I think of a certain relative, which I won't, you know, who basically stayed in a marriage because she wasn't educated. And she made sure that all of her daughters got a college education after that. So I'm really passionate about kind of not ever being, and she said, you know, you should have that in your profile. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I guess I didn't want to feel like I was exploiting that relative or something, because it's not really my story to tell. It's just something that was sort of told to me. I really just thought a lot about it, and I guess sort of internalized it. And, you know, as I've gotten older, it's, you know, what's gotten me out of situations I didn't want to be in is that I earn my own income and I, you know, set my own schedule, and I can kind of make a lot of choices for myself, which I want people to feel like they can have in some parts of their life anyway. So like, you should include that. And I was like, it didn't even occur to me to include that because it felt too touchy-feely or something, or like I was trying to play on people's heartstrings. And then the other thing with the professional armor is I used to wear like blazers and stuff when I first started my business. Because I was 27 and I looked young. I feel like kind of look young now. And I remember one of my clients, he said, Nicole, you look like a tax auditor. I almost died. And I never wore a blazer. Not that I never wore a blazer again, but I realized I was like trying to dress up like the person I thought I should be, instead of just, you know what, I wear crazy shirts and I, you know, am fine with it.
But one example, can you pull up the finances for feminist website? Okay. Yeah. Arielle is a woman. If you scroll down, you'll get to her section that's called My Story. She is a financial coach, and let
me zoom in on
that. One of the pieces of this bio that I love is that it really does bring her personality forward. So from the very first line, growing up, I was a nerd about money, creating a spreadsheet of my Beanie Babies and their value. Note, not actually a functional investment strategy. And she goes on to talk about how, as she grew up, that sense of confidence and like interest in money was downplayed, and how that journey, her own journey with money, motivated her to become a financial coach, specifically around supporting other women. And so, especially for folks who have, whose professional role involves connecting with people like coaches, therapists, people who are like heart-centered kind of business owners, bringing a slice of your personality and your personal story is so important.
Yeah, because they're sharing very personal information with you. Like if you're writing copy, or in my case, you know, marketing, people will talk about kind of how their businesses are doing. I mean, I've had people cry in my office before, like multiple times. I literally keep tissues in the conference room because, like, you know, it's emotional for people because they're telling me like pretty personal things, which I, you know, totally respect and understand. So.
Right. And they want your expertise, but they also want to know that you're a human being and that you're building a genuine relationship together. Vulnerability can be kind of a paradox, because if people don't believe that you're competent, and then you're brand new to them, they don't have a sense of trust in you yet, and you start talking about like whatever, like, oh, here's why I thought I wasn't, whatever, like, here's something vulnerable. The research shows that people tend to be off put by that, like, whoa, I don't know you yet, why are you telling me all of this? Whereas once you've established your authority and your credentials, seeing vulnerability, even seeing little stumbles from people, makes the audience fonder toward that person because it humanizes them. You've built this, these credentials, and then you soften that with bringing in your personal side.
Yeah, because it's true, when people do reveal too much too quickly, we've all met that person at a social function or something. It's a little off-putting, but I guess that's where like a good editor like you could look at something and say, oh, that's a bit much.
Yeah, like maybe that's the fourth paragraph and not the first paragraph, for example. The final form of self-doubt that shows up is, I think, really ironic. But I consider bragging to be a face of self-doubt. So I was on a webinar recently where a woman was talking about, oh, I was on my Peloton the other day cycling, and like, I don't know. And then later on in the webinar, talking about like, when I was in Cambridge training Harvard surgeons about this material, like, what's interesting to me about that is that's an awesome credential. Like, your work is impacting people who are already functioning at such a high level.
Yeah.
And but you could convey that as people who, people are struggling with this no matter their background. Small business owners, Harvard surgeons, like, I have worked with them all, and they all have this same struggle. And that to me is a more relatable framing of that credential, where you don't want to hide. If you work with Harvard surgeons, don't hide that. But there's a way in which it can come across as insecure depending on how you frame it. So that's something else to be aware of.
Yeah. So you would, rather than bringing it up as like oh, by the way, it kind of just to come out and say it, well, with some confidence is a way for that to seem more authentic.
Right. Put it into a context where it's serving the person listening, building rapport with the person who's listening.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. And sorry, I'm keeping an eye on the comments and stuff too. So
cool.
It sounds like, yeah. So I was just checking our comments here, and I'll show Pauline's here, which is, identifying with the challenge of helping friends and family know what to do, giving that some of them are not. So it sounds like she helps people with this too, like in this line of sort of sounding confident without sounding, ridiculously so. So it sounds like this content is really resonating with people. So is the goal to like never to not show any self-doubt ever? Is that something that we should aim to do?
By the end of this workshop, you'll never feel self-doubt again. In fact, you'll glow like the sun. I would love for the takeaway to be that people never feel self-doubt again. But the research that I have read, and a woman I really look to on this is Tara Moore, who has a book called Playing Big. And the perspective she brings is there's never going to be a magical day when you don't feel self-doubt. You're waiting for that day, and when that day appears, then you'll be posting on Facebook really regularly, and you'll be proud to launch the new course that you have coming out. That day isn't really coming. And so how do you move forward despite self-doubt that you feel? And how do you keep an eye on the way self-doubt appears in your own copy so that as you're moving forward, feeling this, whether it's a little anxiety, some fear, continuing to move forward in a way that shows how awesome you are and is not manipulated by these self-doubt words and how those show up.
Okay, so it sounds like, though, there are ways to maybe catch this in your own speech and your own communication. So do you have some ways that we can catch ourselves before we hit the submit button?
I would love to look at your at the edit we did of your page.
Oh, okay, sure. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's get it on the screen here. So we edited my bio, and what I'm going to do, there we go, is what Katie did that was cool is she put like the original with her edits on the screen. So I'm going to just zoom in a bit because this is a little bit small. There we go. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Back in June, huh? Whoa, I zoomed in too much.
If you search for, if you scroll down to knowledge about topics, looking ahead to trends, which is in the Why Us section.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, and scroll down. It's at the bottom of that page.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So a big word that I keep an eye out for is just, because the word just tends to undercut the rest of the sentence that follows. So in this sentence, the beginning, we aren't just savvy of current trends in design, website usability, social media, email marketing, the mobile web, internet culture, and blogging. But we're always looking at the future. And so it does emphasize, like the sentence as currently written does emphasize that as a business, you're always looking at the future. But by framing it as we aren't just savvy about like 7 intricate and technical topics, it undercuts how amazing, each of those services is. Mm-hmm. So in the right column, it says, it was just a quick change to we stay savvy on these current trends, and we're always looking to the future. I keep a list next to my desk, and just is a big one that you can search the document, search the email before you're putting out into the world. And it's not that every instance of the word just needs to be removed. I'm looking for a more just society, for example. Keep that. But that can be a clue that you're undercutting what you do bring to the table. Another example that shows up later in this paragraph says we're always looking at the future, hoping to place our clients ahead in the race instead of just keeping up with the pack. And I changed that to I think in the actual published bio, it says we work to keep our clients ahead in the race. So, or we want to keep our clients ahead in the race, but and not just showing that this is your aim, this is your hope, like, do you actually accomplish that? Subbing out, we hope to accomplish this, for we work to accomplish this, just gives a more active sense of your control in the situation, of the effort that you're putting forth.
I love that I have the word just twice in the original, in this paragraph.
There is, if you scroll down, the power of not doing it all has the sentence, we want to be really good at what we do. And I think now I'm looking, now it just says we excel at online media. The equivalent paragraph on the new version just cuts that, because you are really good at what you do. And I can say that because I know you.
Right. Well, and if you look too, it's like it made it like your edits made it shorter, which is good too. So like eliminating stuff can be as powerful as adding stuff in.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
Others,
yeah, I have other words here. Oh, do you want to look at the other bio that we had?
Yes, that's a great.
Okay.
Yeah, Lisa Metzger is an amazing photographer who shared her page with us. Thank you, Lisa. And I think she's watching right now. So hello. If you clicked, would you click to overview really quickly?
Oh, sure.
So these are some of her photos. I just want to give folks a sense of how gorgeous her shots are, and how the portraiture and these really tender pictures of farm animals and the scenery, like she's bringing such a gorgeous attention to detail and such talent in her work. So she has that awesome to write about and to commend her.
Yeah.
And if you go to the bio section, one line that I particularly paid attention to when I saw this bio is if you scroll down, the fourth paragraph talks about, I've been fortunate to work with a wide variety of wonderful clients. And words like fortunate and lucky are also words that I keep in mind and check for, because I think particularly, there are people of all genders on this call, but I think particularly as women, we are socialized to attribute our success to luck or be humble. And this client list could just be presented without "I've been fortunate," of like, my clients have included Target, Hanes, DuPont, Motrin. So just giving the information as is, I think, is even more effective, and lets that client list stand on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even showing the logos, but see, I'm catching myself now, which I think is good. Showing the logos of these companies, you work with Target and DuPont, like you worked with some of the biggest companies, in at least the United States. That's impressive. Why are you burying the lead there?
Yeah, that's true. And there's a way, my focus is words and language, but people do process images so even more quickly than they process words by a significant margin. And so having those visual logos are like little credentials at the bottom of your bio or on your site to say, these people thought it was worthwhile to work with me, and they weren't wrong.
In marketing, we call it a trust symbol. So, how can people who are visiting your site for the first time or seeing you, like, how can they feel that they can trust you? And so some of that's online reviews, and some of that is things like, past client, hey, these people paid me. And, some of them are saying, oh, here's other people saying nice things about me via testimonials. So there's different like trust symbols that you can use on your website or in social media to let people know that you're trustworthy. Without saying, I'm trustworthy.
The two other key ways to catch these kinds of self-doubt moments or these little issues. One is, if it's something important, or even if it's something brief, like a social media post, to pause long enough to read it out loud and really give attention to each of those words. And you can think, how would I, my most amazing favorite business friend, I love her and I want her to succeed. Like, how would I feel if these words were coming out of her mouth? And the other strategy is to work with an editor, because the job of an editor, in addition to working with the language and bringing that expertise, partly the job of an editor is to not be you and to not have the hangups about talking about yourself, or I don't know, should I really, like, an editor can just bring an outside perspective that says, you've had your business for 11 years, you've affected 600 clients, like, we can make your bio speak in a way that highlights that to its full potential.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And one of the ways that you did that is you just changed the order of some stuff too.
Can we look at your bio?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the after one or the...
If you pull up the two side by side,
Oh,
that would
sure.
be great.
No problem. I'm just making sure. There we go.
Yeah.
Scroll up here.
Awesome. So Nicole's bio, part of the start with awesome mentality is literally in your bio, which is the place that you describe yourself to the world and to yourself. In your bio, you don't have to go chronologically. You can start with what is most awesome about yourself. Start with the current day, start with what you're doing. And then it is fun if you want to back up and fill in parts of your family history. I think you did a beautiful job in your bio of bringing in your personality, bringing in some humor. But we changed it from Nicole Willett grew up in Fort Kent, Maine, to Nicole Willett as the founder and owner of Breaking Even Communications. Since 2008, she has built over 500 websites and has helped more than 600 clients do more online with their websites, social media, blogs, and email newsletters. So we do get maybe like fourth paragraph, something like that, this backstory about how your family ran the local hardware store and how you, but scroll down to that paragraph where it appears, yeah. So it's still in the finished or in the new version, we still keep this idea of Nicole getting a firsthand look at the joys, sorry for my voice, the joys and annoyances of running a small business, that she knew what she was getting into, which I think is funny. And she knows the challenges all small businesses are up against now more than ever. So bringing that into not just how it's shaped you, but how it shapes the way you work with your clients, that you have this intimate understanding from day one of what it's like to be a small business owner. Yeah.
I know. I always meet people who say things like, well, now that I'm my own boss, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I feel like saying, yeah, you know who's my boss? All of my clients are my boss. And I like, to them, I have one project and that's their project. So anybody who gets self-employed and doesn't think they're going to have a boss, I just want to tell them it's just not true.
Surprise. So I think your bio does a really beautiful job of coming across as like bringing that personal angle, showing who is the person that people are hiring, who, like, what's your style? What do you like to work with? Mm-hmm. Social media is another place where you do want to come across as personable and familiar. And I really liked the point that you made, kind of a meta point about social media, in that social media, of course, it still matters what you say and how you say it. Self-deprecation can come in there, or can feel more appealing in that setting. So that's something to watch out for. But with social media, it's so much about how often we're letting ourselves say it. Would you talk about your experiment that you did?
Yes. So, because mostly clients really resist when I say they have to post more often. They say, I don't want to be, especially on Facebook, they're like, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to bug people. And that's one of the questions we got from somebody who says, like, her job is promoting events. And she says, like, I don't want to be annoying by like, keep reminding people that this event is happening. But what I decided to do was put my money where my mouth was. So I took 2 months worth of data, and I looked at what was my engagement, like, how many people came to my page, like that kind of thing.
And is this
this was on my Facebook page.
Your business page, and for which business?
Oh, for the marketing company.
Okay.
So then I decided I was going to post double the amount of stuff that I normally post. And that felt a little bit gross to me. I was a little bit worried about this, but I thought, you know what, if I'm going to tell people to do it, I have to be willing to do it myself. So I doubled the amount of posts I did for 2 or 3. I forget what it was. I have I have a whole blog post on this, by the way. Maybe I'll put it with the replay. And so I did it for 3 months, and then I compared the two. and then, obviously, I did the marketing company too, because honestly, we get about the same amount of traffic year round. It's not affected by seasonalness like other small businesses.
Yeah.
It's pretty steady. So what I found was that I think I lost like 5 or 6 followers, but I gained like 30 or something. So what I lost compared to what I gained, it was kind of a no-brainer to post double. And I also noticed there was more engagement. Like people seemed to be seeing stuff more. And anecdotally, and it's in the blog too, people were like, oh, I really, they seem to really like things that I had previously posted. So, a blog post that I'd shared before and had written before, when I reshared it, sometimes people on that second, I don't know if it's a timing thing or whatever, but sometimes the second or third or 11th time, this one blog post I wrote, the 11th time I shared it, it took off. And people were like, this is like, oh my God, this is great. And I was like, yeah, I wrote it 4 years ago and I've shared it 10 other times, but the 11th time it just took off for whatever reason. So I will say, like, if you don't believe me, you can run your own experiment. So just look at your data now and then commit to a month that you're going to post double the amount that you normally do. And then just see what happens. And I bet nothing bad happens. I'm pretty sure. I have a series on my blog called I Did This and Nothing Bad Happened. So, I stopped blogging for a year and nothing bad happened. I double posted to social media and nothing bad happened.
Wow.
I bought Facebook followers and nothing bad happened. I bought 1,000.
Is that something you recommend?
No, it's a total vanity thing. I literally went on the internet and bought 1,000 like followers for, I don't know, I forget what it was, $25 or something. And like, yeah, they said, my page was going to be banned and all this stuff. Like nothing bad happened. But nothing good happened either. I mean, that number stayed pretty constant, but I was just trying to prove to clients that, just because someone got you likes doesn't mean that it's something that is going to do anything for your business.
Yeah, that really adds value.
So people they want to know, they forget that your event is coming up. Don't worry about annoying them. Post multiple times, because think about how much stuff is going through social media. And maybe they see it the first time and they forgot to bookmark it or something like that. They might be really relieved that you posted it again. So,
and you have a stat, right, about specifically on Facebook, what percentage of your audience actually sees your? Yeah. So is it like 3%?
2 to 3% of people are going to see your thing, unless like a bunch of people react to it. That's why whenever someone gets a new puppy or gets engaged, you always see it. It's because there's a lot of reaction. And so it's showing it to more and more people. So
that is just a torture device.
Exactly. So let's say you had 100 people on your Facebook page and you share something, 2 people are going to see it, maybe 3, unless they react to it. So if you post it again, the odds that the same 2 or 3 people are going to see it again, slim to none. And the odds that even if they see it again, that they're going to remember that they already saw it and be like, oh my God, that person is so annoying for posting this 2 times or 6 times. It's not even going to register because they're getting thousands of marketing messages every day. You're just among it. And as a small business, honestly, the big businesses are doing it. You shouldn't feel bad as a small business doing this. You're going to be way less annoying than other people are. So we have I know we're a little bit over, but Katie, do you have a little bit of time to answer some questions?
Yeah, maybe 1 to 3 questions.
Okay, I'm going to check the comments, but I'm going to I'm going to put this one on because I think it's really good and it's something I've struggled with too. So this person, has work that they want to brag about, but it falls under NDA. And same here. I've worked with some big clients, but I've signed NDAs, and so I can't really talk about it. So how is there any way we can talk about it? Or how would you handle that?
That is such a good question. And as not a lawyer, I don't know how much advice I can give on that.
Fair enough.
Is there, I do, there's a lawyer, business owner who I follow, and as she keeps her client list secret, but she makes it, she talks about them in general terms. Hers are like celebrities, which is pretty fun. She's like a woman who wrote a song that you definitely know. So she finds ways to talk about her clients without listing them specifically, kind of talk in general terms, highlight what's special or memorable about them or what fields they work in, kind of talk around who they are. But what about you, Nicole? When you're under an NDA, how do you talk about that work?
Sometimes I say things like I work with everybody from solopreneurs to national nonprofits. Or I've had clients, everywhere from like one person shows to, I worked for a really big national nonprofit. Man, I wish I could talk about it, but, like it would impress you.
Yeah.
But, I just say a large national nonprofit, or I say like, oh, we've worked on websites ranging from a couple $1,000s to, a $25,000 budget. So that gives people a sense of scale, the fact that, yes, we can handle big projects, without necessarily giving away who it was for, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a good way to handle it. I struggle with this myself and when this question came in, I thought that it was interesting. So yeah, you could talk about it in general terms. I like the song. Somebody who sings a song you definitely know, a large nonprofit,
Yeah.
Because I just don't want people to have the impression that that we only work with small people. We do, but we've worked with larger ones too, and it's worked out fine, So
it hasn't only worked out fine. It's been great, and they were satisfied and excited about the results that you got for them.
Right, and we've worked on multiple projects, even years later. So okay, there we go. See, she's just already reframing it. And so in this other question, which is pretty good, is so this is from a web designer. So she says, okay, so for example, when she finishes a website, how does she post to how can she say basically, look what I did, sure, please click on this to admire. How do you basically show a project you've completed or something you're really proud of without it looking like you're bragging?
Yeah. I was just talking through this with someone. Someone was talking about specifically when you've just given a talk for some group and you're really proud of it and you want people to know. This woman was saying, I get so annoyed when people say, I was honored to speak with the Chamber of Commerce or whatever. She's like, even just saying you were honored to do it, like, we know you're just bragging about yourself. That particular approach doesn't bother me, but it bothered her. So what she said was, I wish people would say, when I presented at the Chamber of Commerce, I got the best question from someone in the audience. They asked this and this, and we had a whole discussion, like, so that the person receiving your post, your share, is getting something out of it besides like, hooray, you, but really learning something, like using the great thing you did as a framework through which to pass some useful morsel of knowledge. That's one approach.
Yeah. And it's true. I used to do case studies. So I'd say, hey, we worked with so-and-so, we found that these were the things that they wanted to improve. So we did this, and this is how it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. And being able, if you have even a good friend of mine is a running coach, and he celebrates the wins that his clients get in terms of their personal times or their races. I love posting on my Instagram about when my clients' websites launch and sharing the work they do. One of my clients recently worked with me to revise her website when she raised her prices for the first time. So that was like a big win for her to get to the number of clients and the amount of reach that she was able to raise her prices and really grow in prominence. So it's nice when you're able to frame your achievement in terms of what it's helped other people to achieve. And I think many of us are in our businesses in order to serve in some way. And so showing those results is a natural way to show your own results.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So,
yeah,
that's pretty much what, and then we've had some other people who just said, hey, can you look at this for me, that kind of thing. And,
cool.
And to that end though, we're just going to put out, we've got a little offer. So I'm going to share. So basically Katie and I, we like working together. And if you feel like, you've gotten something out of this, that's great. If you want to keep working with us, we have a little,
Yeah.
stop it, Nicole. We have a package on the Anchorspace site, just because like it's a shared site we can both get at. And the basic idea is that Katie will interview you and rewrite your bio, and she'll probably pull little nuggets out of you like she did out of me. Well, she's like, well, how many clients have you worked with? And when I told her, she was, wow, that's a lot of people. And I said, oh, I guess so. But, 12 years and 600 or so clients, like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Maybe that is impressive. So she'll pull those nuggets out of you, rewrite your bio, and I will write social media updates that correspond with your new bio. And, you can get a consult with one of us. So if more short form content is something you'd like help with, that would be a me thing. If it's a more long form content, that would be a Katie thing. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. It's on the site, and we've got a little intro pricing there that goes probably till the end of the month, till the end of October. So it's just kind of a way to sort of get a set thing in terms of some work out of both Katie and I that you can use on your website and other places online, like your LinkedIn profile. Like, there's lots of places your bio shows up when you start thinking about it. Your Facebook has an about tab. I'm always surprised how much traffic my about tab gets.
And when you're speaking, if you're doing some kind of public speaking on your own, you want a bio that sets up people to be excited about who they're about to hear from.
Yeah, for sure. And, and so this is for everybody who is kind of front and center in their business, who you are matters, which I feel like is most people at this point. So take a look at that. And I don't know, Katie, do you have any final thoughts before we end the broadcast?
This has been great, Nicole. Thank you so much for organizing this. And yeah, I love connecting with people about how to make their businesses the most effective, and what is the personal side, the psychology side of bringing that forward. So thanks so much for facilitating this, and I look forward to connecting with more of you offline afterwards.
Yeah, that's great. And, so you can follow Katie on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook or YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, but a little bit less prolifically. And otherwise, stay in touch. And if you actually go to the registration of this site, which I did not make a banner for, but I will throw up in the comments of the video, if we get your email address, we can send you this recording. Obviously, the recording is going to live on our social media channels, but if you want a link to the recording directly in your inbox, just feel free to share your email with us and we will get it to you. So thanks again, Katie, and everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you soon on one of these broadcasts. Take care.
Great. Thank you.